Welcome, everyone. I'm Paul Everton, the host at the Truth Table, and it's January 12th, 2025. And my guest also hosts a podcast himself. His name is Peyton Askari, and the podcast is called In Lay Terms. We're going to ask him about that, what compelled him and drew him to become a podcast host, and he's also running for the PPC. And as you can see here, he has his own website. Let's see, here we go. That you can find out more about him. It's PeymanAskari.ca, and his podcasts there, and different events, and why he's running in the PPC federal election. Now, if you know anyone who lives in Vancouver, please share this with them so they can know their candidate and understand who they're voting for, what they're voting for, because information is the most important thing that we can share in today's day. And we're going to meet Peyman right after this. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's January 12th, 2025, and my guest today is Peyman Askari, who's the host of In Lay Terms, which has a lot of views. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, thanks for having me, Paul.
I'm not muted, am I?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Am I muted? Can you?
thanks for coming. So, how did In Lay Terms? No, I can hear you.
Um,
Yep. There might
yeah,
be
it
a
seems like we
delay.
have.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah, there's an audio delay, but it's okay. We'll power through it. So the question was, how did I start my own podcast? I was volunteering for the National Citizens Inquiry, and every once in a while, an email would come in, and somebody would say, "Please call me back." And I'd call this guy, regular, ordinary farmer Joe, in the middle of nowhere. He's a cattle farmer, and he just understands everything that's going on, everything that's wrong with the country. Same thing when you get like a single mother, she understands the legal system and how to fix rule of law. And I thought, well, this is amazing. Like I don't have to pay somebody, pay a professor to tell me these things. I could just talk to regular Canadians. And turns out, if you have a podcast, it's a lot easier to convince people who don't know you to have a conversation with you. And the reason it's called In Lay Terms is because I want to talk to people in layman's terms. I don't like using advanced esoteric language intended to intimidate people.
I agree with you, and I'm exactly the same. I like to speak in layman's term because I don't want to be seem pretentious at all, and I want everyone to understand the message because my podcast is just about the truth, finding the truth, sharing the truth, and the truth is very dangerous in a Marxist society. I don't know why I'm laughing at that, but here's your Rumble channel. If anyone wants to find it, all his videos are there. I see like 138, so that's a lot of episodes with a lot of interesting people. I have watched a lot of your shows. It's rumble.com /c/ inlay terms, and also you can find them on YouTube at inlay terms, and that's the other place where you can also find him, and his website as well. What which has all his information and about his running as candidate for the PPC party. And that's great. You did a really good job on this site as well.
Thank you.
So what inspired you to start Inlay Terms? Like, what initiated it for you?
It goes back to what I said. Like I wanted to talk to. I knew at in some level, I knew that I had to run for public office. It's not that I wanted to. I don't want to do this. I want to be on the beach somewhere, but I knew I had to. And I thought, why don't I merge what I learned at the National Citizens Inquiry with running for political office, and it'll help me run as a populist, because we don't have the millions of dollars or the brand recognition of the established political parties. So I thought, let me. I'm a very private person. I did not want my face behind a camera, but I said I'll do it. I'll set up a podcast and I'll pitch it like this. I'm an ordinary citizen. I think government is the cause of all of our problems, and the solutions have to be citizen led. Please come on my show. And then it's amazing. Like ordinary Canadians, they agree. They come on your show. You ask them one question, and you let them talk for 15 minutes, and that's a free 15-minute education course. Somebody tells me about tax reform in Canada, about judicial activism in Canada. They talk to me about God-given rights before 1982 in Canada. So it's really a free lesson. I do have an altruistic motive too, though. I'm trying to capture these conversations on the record and share them with other Canadians. So instead of only me educating myself, I'm also giving other Canadians the opportunity to educate themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything you're looking for with guests? Anything criterias?
Um, yeah. So me personally, the way I look at it, if you're a Canadian and you're fighting for your country, that's aces in my book. Um, they don't have to be educated like university education, but usually they have to have a story. So if it's a single mother that dropped out of high school and she got arrested by the cops for not wearing a mask in a pharmacy and she defended herself in court, I want her to come on and explain to us what's the process of defending yourself in court, how she thinks the justice system let her down. Um, Again, I know some people don't like it, like when I get somebody from a rough town and he swears a lot on my show, or somebody whose views on race relations might not align with mine or my audience. But again, if he's a Canadian and if he or she is fighting for their country, I bring him on.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I would say, like Cullen McDonald, he was fighting for his freedom, for protesting. So I had him on the show, and he wanted to ask a question to Maxime Bernier, and Maxime was on the show as well, and he answered every question without hesitation, and I appreciate that so much. There isn't another leader that would do that. I just don't believe they would just know how to dance around a question without answering it. They can talk for 20 minutes and never actually. I mean, I'm so tired of watching Parliament because they do it professionally, not answering questions. They'll just deflect and start talking about something else. We're doing this, and we're building that and that, instead of actually answering the question. And that's the most frustrating thing as an adult to watch. I want to throw them out. It's like, this is not kindergarten. We're not playing games here. You're playing with our lives, and it's not a game. If someone asks you questions, we want to know the answers too. And we don't want this English and French and English and French, because as soon as they start talking French, they don't shut down the French. So we got French and English at the same time. So so we can't understand anymore. So it's like very pretentious, the whole setup. And Quebec's got a real stronghold on making sure that any candidate has to speak French. And are you running federally?
I am running federally, so it's almost an unwritten rule that if you want to be it might even be a rule, to be a prime minister, you have to be bilingual, which I'm not. My French is atrocious. I understand there's been a lot of issues between English and French Canada. and Quebec felt screwed over in the early parts of the history, and now they're kind of overreacting. I just wish that our province would fight back the same way. But putting that aside, I 100% agree with you. The parliament is turned into a circus. So Pierre Poilievre gets up and asks, like, Mr. Prime Minister, where did all this money go? And then Justin Trudeau fires back, we're trying to ensure fairness for all generations. We're combating climate change. Why are you talking about this? And yeah, that's not the purpose of Commons, of a parliament. Like, you're supposed to be parliamentarian, you're supposed to be professional and answer the question.
But as a representative, if you do get a seat, and I hope you do, I really do, if you do get a seat, will the PPC answer questions?
Well, yes, I would hope that we would answer them, in a level-headed manner, and if we get insulted, we don't try to insult back, like, try to be cooler heads will prevail.
100%, 100%. What do you think about the water situation? I have a friend here, Donald. He's very concerned about drinking water. Is that a part of the PPC platform to check the water supply, make sure it's clean and safe? Because I really don't believe they're doing that. I think they're poisoning the water to kill something else, but they're not removing the poison. You know what I mean?
So it is a part of the PPC policy platform under the First Nations relationship. So it's getting the federal government to better deal with the First Nations, getting them clean drinking water. I believe your question is also related to just general clean drinking water in Canada.
Yeah, it is. I think if, like, with the train accidents that happened, a lot of that pollution went into the lakes, and it's just going to end up in our in our water supply, and even our underwater aquifers are in jeopardy. For people that have well water and that sort of thing, thinking they're safe. Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where we might have to use reverse osmosis to just completely purify it, and then add minerals just to make it alkaline, and have that one pipe that's alkaline and one pipe that's reverse osmosis that are good for plants, so you can water your garden with it and shower with it. You can do everything with that, but drink it, because it's acidic. It's still acidic, reverse osmosis, but it's clean, it's pure, good for the land, good for the plants, good for everything except drinking, basically. So that seems like an expensive thing, but it's very safe. It's a guarantee the water's not going to be good, and I would prefer that. There's also a technology where they can put fans in the pipes, because they're pressurized. So, every time someone turns the water on, that pressure will spin the fans and create free energy. So there's so many things that we can do better. And this could supply energy for the, residents that are using the water. Just by turning the tap on, you're generating electricity. So I think we could do so much better, and they've done everything in the bad way. And that's why I'm really rooting for the PPC party. Now, what else can I ask you? I hate when I ramble.
I can comment on that further. Sure. So it's a very complex question you asked, because, like, I'm very big on property rights, but when you get to things like air and water, these are two things that we rely on, and they kind of move around. This isn't like cattle on your property where it's yours. You can pretty much do what you want. So everybody wants clean water. Everybody wants clean air. We might disagree on how we get there. So, the Green Party now might think that we should tax people to, and socially engineer people to not eat beef, which causes CO2, which I'm not really in agreement with. But
Yeah.
but definitely everybody wants clean water, and I think the PPC platform is much better for that. Now, another complicating factor is that you don't want to, as the People's Party, we want to adhere to the Constitution, and the Constitution does entrust natural resources and the environment to the provinces. So we want to clean the environment wherever we can federally, but we also don't want to do what every government has done, where we overstep our boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what compelled you to the PPC party? Like, what was it about it that was other, different than the rest? That because I know you wanted to run to make changes to save your country, probably. But what was it about the PPC party that said this is the one?
My start in politics, it was born out of frustration and anger, and that anger was targeted towards the liberal NDP coalition. So
Mm-hmm.
right there, those two were out. And just to give you a sense of how naive, and ignorant I was of the political system, I had to Google, like, what are the other political parties other than the Conservative Party? The
Mm-hmm.
Conservative Party website, there just wasn't really anything there. I have a business background. I somebody comes to me with a proposal, I like to look through the documentation. When I want to go in front of the customer, I have to make sure my messaging, my vision, my mission statement is spot on. And that stuff was just lacking on the Conservative Party. Another party was the Green Party. Wasn't really impressed. And then it's at the People's Party. And I looked through the platform. I believe there's 21 policies. Don't quote me on that. But I read through every single one of the policies, and every single one made sense. Some of them I thought didn't go far enough, but just the fact that they made sense, that they were transparent and comprehensive. And I have a research background, and I was like, this is gold. And that's why I went with the party. And just to tie it back to something you said earlier, you said Max is the only politician that answers everything, comprehensively and honestly. I think Max's sort of style went into the creation of that website, and that's really what drove me to the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked at all the parties as well, and the PPC party didn't exist when I first ran. I believe it was 2016 or 2018, but I ran against Doug Ford, basically, in the provincial election under the Libertarian Party. And I did really well in that party. They nominated me for 5 executive positions, so I was humbled by that. But I really didn't see a future in the party. I thought the media wasn't listening. They were just downplaying and mocking and laughing at the Libertarian Party. And there was, I think, a lot of infiltration in that party and all the other parties. I think they're all infiltrated. I think we've been compromised in Canada, and it almost doesn't matter who you vote for. Like the Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Green. Like Green is basically, plants over people. So I mean, it's like the climate change on I can't think of the word, but I did talk to Max about the diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a big problem for a lot of people. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way. In Vancouver, they're very liberal there. They're very democratic. So you really got a fight on your hands by running in Vancouver. And so we can only pray that people wake up and hear the message and just do a little investigation, because they just have to read the platform, of each one. Read them all, It should be taught in school. All the platforms, the books, they should all be available in classes so the children can read about each one and find out about each one. I don't believe in saying, well, these guys are bad, so you know, we're not going to teach about it. And I don't believe in that at all. But I mean, the liberals, for example, they could teach about their platform, but also tell them what they actually did. They said this, but they did that. And that's a part of the education that they need, because historically we have all the record, all the information, what they voted for, all the moves they made, the questions they didn't answer. And so I'm been praying that that the PPC will get a seat, just to get that voice. We need that voice so desperately, because once that voice is heard, I think it'll spread. That if that we'll have a voice that can't be ignored anymore. And I believe in everything. There isn't anything I disagree with. The economy, immigration, I mean, I don't know what it's like in Vancouver. Is there an immigration problem in Vancouver where you live? Like, are you noticing any problems?
I always tell it like this. When COVID hit around December 2020 is when I remember everything ramped up. I was basically a pariah. Like I'm originally Iranian. You know, I couldn't really go to the family dinners, not because my family disowned me, but I go there and the family friends are there, and you know they want to talk about how things are so good, and meanwhile I can't even go to a restaurant. Uh, Starting maybe 2 months ago, I think the economy has gotten to a point where I just go to these. I'm reinvited back to these family dinners, and I just sit there and I listen to people talk. So you're asking about immigration. At some point, someone's mom or dad is going to talk about how there's too many students, and the universities favor the foreign students, so their son or daughter can't get in. Like with a 98%, they can't compete because they would prefer the foreign student that pays more.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess something clicked in me um, when you or I'm assuming our views are somewhat similar. If we get ostracized in society and we're victimized and we're marginalized, they don't care. They can still go to A&W. They can still go, go out on vacation. But when
Hmm.
their daughter or son can't get into university, now it impacts them. And I could probably give same examples for transgenderism in school and inflation. And so now the PPC policies and platform is beginning to resonate with the people in my community.
Yeah, I hope so because Vancouver just seems hopelessly NDP. It's like they haven't learned anything. Either that or they're cheating. And I did hear of a case or court case or something about the last election and how I don't know if it was the by-election because I had Ian Kennedy, who's also in Vancouver, a PPC candidate in Vancouver, and so I had him on because of the by-election and hoping that people can hear the message. Um, Now, as far as Iran was a beautiful country like Canada until 1953, where they overthrew the elected official and installed the Shah of Iran and basically interfered in that country and demonized to this day this country. But, I don't believe any of it. I think we've been the bad guy all along. We've been funding this all along. And what we did to Iran is unforgivable. What we do to many countries, Syria, saying he, gassed his own people. I don't believe Canadians want to fund these wars anymore. I think we've got too much blood on our hands, and it goes back to 1953 in Iran. I think we, destroyed that country when people were dressed just like us, and then now that they're in burqas and they're covering their faces and they have Sharia law. I mean, what a horrible life, you know? It's for something to be forced upon you and not to have the freedom to just be, to enjoy your culture and expand your culture and, you know, be Iranian from your source, from your roots. Because I don't think badly of anybody in any country. I think the problem is the governments. NATO is a very bad thing. They were created to dismantle the USSR. And once that happened, NATO should have been dismantled. Mission complete. Now stop. But they haven't stopped. They look what they did in Libya to Gaddafi and Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and on and on and on. These and all these wars for Israel. So will the PPC party stop funding these wars? Will they end this foreign aid that's killing people?
Yeah, I mean it's our official policy, and Max just put out a post yesterday. There was somebody. I'm going to say the guy was in office, a public servant, and in his handle he had like the flags of 4 or 5 other countries. I won't mention what they are, but he came out and he said like, what the blank is going on here? Like, are you representing our country or a foreign country? Now, I wanted to draw a couple of lines. You mentioned Iran, so yes, 53 was a pivotal year, and then 79, the revolution. Clinton came in and he kind of used, I believe it was Clinton, he started the sanctions against Iran. So he used the monetary supply to declare war against Iran. And because Iran dogs, because Iran is the big bad boogeyman, most of the public accepted it. Then 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe now, Joe Biden did the same thing and escalated it and used it against Russia. And a lot of us were like, wait a minute. Okay, fine, maybe Russia isn't our ally, but this is something's not right here. And then the whole BRICS nation took over. Now, what's happened like a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, Trump, he's probably joking, but he's hinting about tariffs, 25% tariffs against one of the longest allies.
Mhm.
So these things are escalating, and tools that we were using against our worst enemies, we're now using against our best allies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. But I do like that you will stop funding these wars. It's not going to stop them, but at least our money is not going to have blood on it. We could use that money here with our infrastructure and, that sort of thing. Now, what do you think about the DEI in schools and gender pronouns and all that agenda?
Can I say one more thing about
Sure.
UN?
Yeah.
So again, I think you and I are kind of aligned in this. The United Nations, maybe it did some good things, but to me, it's an instrument of what they call statecraft. So the United States would use the UN to basically get access to markets since 45.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, I think probably with the war in Serbia, America realized, like, why use the UN when we can use NATO that has a military? So NATO, it kind of switched from being on paper a defensive alliance to being an offensive alliance. And this is why, like, NATO is just expanding and expanding. And I do not buy this argument. Yes, Russia shouldn't have invaded Ukraine, but that's a bigger issue there with that Maidan coup. And
Mhm.
now NATO is trying to get us dragged into that. I don't support that. I mean, if you really want to go into that, we should withdraw from UN with most of the programs. We definitely withdraw from NATO. Our money should not go to any, like, we should stop foreign aid. Outside of a war, stop foreign aid. If you want to do foreign aid, declare war first.
Well, as far as Ukraine, back in 2014, I've seen people from Ukraine um, talking about Russia helping them from the Ukrainian military, basically rescuing them because they were being attacked by the Azov battalion, but they were attacking their own people. Anyone pro-Russia. Meanwhile, they're on the border like Canada, United States, so a lot of them were crossing, working, had family over the border in Russia. They were like family. It was open, happy border like Canada, United States, no issues until 2014 when they had a coup and they blamed Russia, but basically Russia came in to stop them from killing Russians. That's so they're lying about this. Russia's not invading. Russia helped us in World War II against the Nazis, and he's saying he's fighting against the Nazis again. Basically based in Ukraine with Lewinsky as their puppet. But I don't believe a word from our government and our media. I don't think Russia's invading. He doesn't want to conquer Ukraine. He doesn't want to be there at all. But these are Russians. As far as he's concerned, this is his family. This Ukraine used to be a part of Russia. And there was a lot of Russian speaking people in Russia. People that are pro Russia, the media, all were shut down. Any politician that ran that was pro Russia, they were assassinated or just removed. So we're a part of the problem because we're spreading the bad. We're helping the bad people once again, just like in Syria, we're helping the bad people. The Syrian rebels are ISIS. I mean, we're funding this. We're the bad guy, and I think the immigration is all these people coming here now because they've got what they wanted over there, and now they're just bringing them here. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
Hey, let me do a follow up because I'm running for public office. If I don't clarify this, I'm going to get crucified. If we just took a if we just took a higher level view and just stepped back, this isn't about Ukraine. This isn't about Canada supporting Russia or Ukraine. This is America playing a game of chess with Russia, and America is using NATO in. I'm taking my this stuff all from Mike Benz. America is using NATO in Pakistan and they're funneling weapons through Pakistan. They're using NATO in Romania, and they're funneling weapons through Romania. They're using NATO in Ukraine to try to get access to their oil, to bankrupt Russia. So this is literally the Cold War.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Ukrainians are bad. I'm not saying we should go bomb Ukraine. It's just I see that this is just geopolitics on steroids, and
Mhm.
I don't think Canada should have anything to do with this. And I'm worried about when NATO turns its sights on Canada. Like if I get up there and I say we should get rid of central banking and the fiat fractional reserve banking system, what am I going to get assassinated? Like,
Yeah, well, that's the problem with our situation right now. I think the truth is probably dangerous at this point. I mean, they're using AI, so I mean, there's no hiding really. And I'm just not scared. I'm just not afraid anymore. There was a part when there was fear, when I saw what we were looking at, what we're up against. But then I realized, God is a lot more powerful than these people. And to be it's worth dying for something righteous than to just bow and go on your knees and say, okay, I capitulate. So I didn't want to do that. So do you capitulate to climate change?
no, I don't. But you have to be careful how you say it, right? Like, I
Yeah.
got to stop calling them climate communists. People don't like it when I say that, but like the climate, it probably is getting warmer. But this is just natural Earth cycles.
Yep.
But what I don't do is I don't get drawn into these arguments with them, because then what happens is you get some guy who talks to you about the CO2 concentration and some effect of carbon interacting with oxygen. You're never going to win that argument. It's just this happens all the time. This is natural. You can't just freak out because the weather today at noon is not what it was when your great grandfather was here 100 years ago on this day at noon. It's always going to change. Deal with it.
Yeah, and I think they're playing on words because they're using the word change because it changes all the time. Hour by hour, the climate changes. It could be cloudy 1 second and then not cloudy the next. So, yeah, I agree with you. You look through time and you can see the ice age and the warming period, and that's all a natural thing. It's very slow moving, and it's definitely not something to profiteer from. And that's what I think this is. This is just stealing the wealth of Canadians even further. I mean, they're doing it every way. I mean, if someone dies, you can't leave your house to your kids anymore. I mean, they're going to tax you to death tax. And then, oh my God, it's just so criminal at this point. You want to sell one of your properties just to survive, to buy food. And they're going to, tax you for that. So how's the PPC party going to deal with the tax situation?
Well, I think if you look at the PPC platform on taxes, they're talking about reducing capital gains tax, reducing income tax. I would take it a step further, and I'd say, like, you have to simplify the tax code. I would honestly make the Minister of Finance, like, make them come in at the beginning of Parliament and show every single tax code. Like, you have to print it out. I guarantee you it would be a stack of books like this high.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. And the rules keep changing. Like in BC, we just got a new tax. Climate change is a money laundering tool and a cool hoax. Yeah, I agree with that, Donald. BC, they brought out a flip tax. So if you live in your house for less than a year and you sell it, you have to pay 20% on that. Like, it's usually capital gains tax exempt. So what they're doing, you probably see this as well. They cause a problem, they destroy the economy, and the solution is more government. But in my opinion, like, you need to reform the tax system. So simplify the taxes, less taxes. You can, if you want to tax like industry, if you want to do a progressive tax where you're taxing the billionaires, I would rather do it in a way where you're empowering the middle class and the working class. And, rather than punishing the rich, maybe if you make less than $1 million, you don't have to file any taxes. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So I think Canada has so much potential, like our pipelines. We could have them west coast to east coast, north to south. I mean, there's no reason for us not to do that because we're so resource rich in Canada. Would the PPC open that door and allow it to happen and just do it?
Yes, but I would honestly rather see the provinces step forward and do that because this should be their own domain. But I think what a PPC government should do is muzzle the legislators and bureaucrats that want to get in the way of that. So property, environment, resources, that should be the jurisdiction of the provinces. If need be, I mean, this would probably not happen in our lifetime, but you could bring criminal charges against any government bureaucrat that tries to violate that in the Constitution. I mean, if I violate the Constitution, I'll go to jail. But it
I,
probably, yeah,
I like
I know.
that.
After what happened under COVID, everybody wants to see jail time. But putting that aside,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like energy resources, we need to, some people call this morality, but we need to sort of educate ourselves better. Like, you can't have the government locking up resources. So when the government doesn't allow licenses for pipelines, what they're saying is, this land is ours. What's under the land is ours. Furthermore, we're not going to capitalize or utilize that land, but still you're going to pay me taxes so that I can get my cushy pension. We need to get out of that mindset. We need resources. We're dependent on the land. We need to, cut the trees for timber. We need to get the minerals out of the ground, and we need to get the oil and gas out of the ground. If people don't want to do that, they're welcome to go and live in the woods, but don't make me have to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I would like to see hemp being utilized, like a hemp being used for like patio tiles. People that have patio tiles and they crack. You know how they crack after a year. And the thing about using hemp is they're 3 times stronger and 3 times lighter. So this is amazing. You know how heavy those are, but they're not going to crack. We could use this for roads. So we don't have to replace the roads every 2 years and have all these potholes. They can make roads stronger. They can make houses fireproof using it as insulation. There's so many uses for hemp to replace. We can use it rope. It's the strongest rope that we can make. So we need to take back this power that mankind has by utilizing what God gave us and stop all these greedy corporations from dominating like a rope. And we can do better. Just the patio tiles is a silly example, but it's real. It's a lighter, so you can move them around. It's easier to work with. They're going to be stronger. They're probably going to last a lifetime, and who knows how long the roads would last. That will save so much money on infrastructure, not having to do the roads every couple of years. So, I mean, that's where I come from. That's kind of, I became a libertarian, but I don't think the libertarians have a hope. I think the PPC has a hope because I am kind of conservative. I would consider myself conservative. Um, but I do like the libertarian side of the PPC party, like firearms, to be able to protect yourself in your own home. I think it's so important and it's so terrible that was taken away from us. A lot of these people coming into our countries would not give us the same freedom if we went to their countries. We would not have the freedom that they have here. They're being treated way better than their own countries. Under Sharia law, we would be killed for very small things that we don't see anything about, like being a Christian, is not acceptable. A lot of countries like Armenia was Christian, and Armenians, and they were genocided. Most Armenians were just thrown out of Armenia or killed. The Christians have been genocided or killed or thrown out. And now it's the population is Jewish and Muslim living in harmony. They live in harmony, but they're not from there. They basically took over, and now they live in harmony. So, this Jewish and Muslim war is fake. It's not real. because they live in harmony there, but they stole the land, they took the land, and this seems to be a pattern all over the world that seems to be acceptable to the UN and NATO. They seem to be okay with that, but I'm not okay with that, and I certainly don't want to fund it. And I'm rambling again, but you do believe in being the right to protect yourself in your own home. And
Can I, before I answer that, you're Armenian?
No, but I have a friend that's from Armenia, so a lot of my friends are from different parts of the world, like Iran, so I study, the history of different countries, and because I want to know, I care, I just care. I want to know the truth, and sometimes you have to go to the actual person to get the truth because the government's not going to tell us, Google's not going to tell us anymore. So you have to go one-on-one. You have to talk to the person to be able to find out what is it like there, and yeah, I think my spiritual strength guides me in the right direction. If I want an answer, if I have a question, I get the answer. I always get the answer, and it's just been beautiful. I love it because I want the truth, and that's why I started the Truth Table, because I want to share things that I believe are important to me, that really speak to me, just like what you're doing is important to me. You're doing the same thing I'm doing. You have a podcast, and you're presenting information that people may not be getting on the mainstream media. So we both have our part in this, and I don't want to get too off track, but when did you start the inlay terms? Like how long have you been doing this?
I think it's been less than a year. I just went really crazy with a lot of the episodes. That's why there's so many of them.
How often do you do an episode?
Way more than I should. Like last week, I think I was doing 3 episodes a day, and I'm like, I'm falling behind on all my paperwork. Probably CRA probably wants to throw me in jail.
Ooh. That's a lot, though. That's a lot.
Yeah, but, I got to reduce that to like 3 a week.
So this is on Rumble here. If anybody wants to see, it's right there in lay terms. Lots of shows. I've watched a lot of your shows. I'll have to admit that up front. But I do enjoy your show, and I do watch because I'm curious. I want answers too. Here you are on YouTube, which has given me strikes, and you're a liar. You know what I mean? The fact checkers, and oh my God. So I ended up deleting that account and starting a new one. I just don't care about YouTube at all. I'm streaming live there, so don't get mad, YouTube. All right, I have a right to be mad at you.
Can I take a moment to go back? I want to tie together a couple of things you said.
Absolutely.
So like the rule of law is really important to me, and I've been thinking about it a lot the last few years. And if we think of Canada as a country, and every person, everyone's on an equal playing field. You have your neighbor on your left and on your right, and above you create this concept of rule of law, and everybody has to follow that rule of law. And if there's an issue, you arbitrate that. And and like this, going back to your hemp thing, like this, to me, that's a property rights issue. So if it was just people working together and you and I wanted to start a hemp company, I don't know anything about hemp. You just mentioned something about the roads. Like we should be able to start a company with minimal money, and we go to the government and we say we can do it for this amount of dollars. But what's happened is the government has introduced so many regulations that it's made it impossible for we, the little people, to bid on these tenders. It's always the big corporations that win, and that's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a corporation can take the hit of those regulations. So if the corporation needs to put up $1 million to deal with those regulations, and they'll make $2 million on the back end, you and I don't have that $1 million. So I to tie it back to that libertarian streak that you have, I'm totally in favor of reducing regulations. And if hemp, however its uses are, let the free market figure it out. You want some regulations. You don't want you and me to go dump hemp into the drinking water and contaminate the water supply. But you can deal with that in criminal law. You can deal with that by putting a fence around your water supply or something like that. But I am 100% opposed to all of these regulations.
Well, hemp grows very quickly. It's not a drug. You don't get high off it. It's just a product that has been demonized because of it's the best. It's the strongest rope you can make, and it grows the fastest. So it's very uh, what do you call it? The production is very fast. It's very good. The turnaround is very good, and there's so many products that can be made with it, and it's insulation for your house and all sorts of different things that I've seen over the years that it can be used for. I mean, long ago, one of the presidents said everyone should grow hemp, and I understand why he said that. But yeah, there's been a war, and hemp lost that war, and I want to bring it back. I want to bring it to the forefront and say this is better than all the rest. We can do better. We can make everything stronger, better. Like, why do we have things that break down after a year when it doesn't have to? You know, cars are being made, cheaper. Houses are being made cheaper. All these things are unnecessary. We can do better. We have done better. Look at the cathedrals hundreds of years ago. How beautiful they are. All the detail. Now we just have square blocks. It's
Yeah.
like they've just completely downgraded life for mankind. And I don't think, and even Iran was beautiful. It's all the countries have so much beauty. France and Italy, and there's so much beauty all over the world that's just being decimated by these wars. So how how would you? What's your position with the veterans, like the PPC position for taking care of veterans?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I've never been in the army. I've never fought in a conflict zone. So I'm not ashamed to say that this is not my wheelhouse. But
Hmm.
like the PPC policies, they're pretty straightforward. Like you should not help a foreigner before helping your veterans. You don't need to be in the military to understand that.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing in talking with some of the other PPC candidates that are veterans, when you're asking people to potentially put their lives at risk, you have to reward them a little bit above and beyond what normally you would. Like, this is no longer a free market sort of scenario. So you
Hmm.
do have to go in and you do have to give them benefits. You do have to give them, workers' compensation or veterans compensation. And finally, like, not a single dollar of taxpayer money should go to funding foreign aid until we've dealt with our veteran issue, and adjacent to that, our homelessness issue. These are not veteran these are not like veteran defense issues. These are common sense issues. That's my position on veterans affairs.
I agree. And healthcare.
The PPC policy on healthcare.
Hmm.
Well, first thing I would do is I would rename it from healthcare to health insurance, because that's what the government's doing is it's giving health insurance. I think I'm in line with the PPC policies that we need a public-private version, so 2 tiers,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
it's yeah, and that's not just me that wants to minimize the government's role in healthcare, but just talking to mothers, a lot of them are saying like they have to take time off work to go to the U.S. to pay out of pocket. Well, just let them do that here. I mean, you're saving on the cost of the flight, the cost to take time off work, and you're saving the tax dollars are spent here.
Hmm.
And the other thing I'll say about healthcare is just a constitutional issue. It should be a provincial jurisdiction. I typed this into Chat GPT the other day, like how do you get licensed as a doctor in BC? First of all, only the University of British Columbia can educate doctors, which I thought was crazy. That's a big bottleneck. But like the licensing that crosses that, there's something like 8 to 10 boards, like College of Physicians of BC.
Hmm.
All of them, to certain degrees, have government influence. One of them is in the US and one of them is global. And that's a lot of red tape. So if people are wondering why they're paying so much money and their healthcare sucks, yes, some of it is because we're getting too much bureaucracy in the hospitals at all levels, but it's also because you have one university that dictates how many doctors you're going to have, which that decreases the supply, increases the cost. And the other is like you have all of these regulatory bodies that say, oh, you have to study an extra year. Oh, you have to do 2 years of residency. So yes, they have values, so doctors understand how to use a syringe and a stethoscope, but there's also cost associated with that.
Yeah, that's true. Now, the other thing I have a problem with is supply management. They got, dairy farmers pouring out their milk. They can only sell so much, and I mean, what the hell is that? I
Man,
think
yeah. Go ahead.
if a cow can produce this much milk, I would like to see some of it going to the calf. Obviously, I don't want it all to go. I think that the life cycle needs to happen there, and even the chickens. I don't like that they're putting hormones in the chickens. Now they're putting mRNA in the pork, in the pigs. It's like, stop. So so I'm assuming that we're on the same page with supply management, but you can let
No,
everyone.
like we are, but what I find is funny is I talk about this a lot, and sometimes I go into Twitter X Spaces, and you get the odd person that's defending supply management, and the argument that it doesn't make sense. Like why would you do that? First of all, it's a tariff. Built into that is a tariff, so it's the argument is you're trying to prevent American dairy and poultry or whatever to come in because it's subsidized on the other end.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe everybody wants free and fair trade. And then, but I don't understand internally, like, why do you have a quota system? You've already dealt with the import issue on the tariff end. Now you got a quota system, and this is, I always tell people, like, if you want to solve the country, you have to look at the foundations. Like, this is a property rights issue. If you have a cow, you decide how much you want to milk that cow. If you have chickens, you decide how many eggs you want to sell. But when you relinquish that power and you give it to government, don't then be surprised when government turns around and does something stupid, like tells you we're going to have to inject mRNA into your poultry and your cattle. Like, this could be very easily resolved by reducing the size of government. But yes, in answer to your question, it's the dumbest thing on the planet.
Yeah, they want to put mRNA in every childhood vaccine. So they just love this stuff. Equalization payments. I would think that we'll probably feel the same way about that too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the official PPC policy is that you have to do something that's a little bit more fair, and interprovincial trade has to be reduced. I looked at it from a historical perspective. John A. Macdonald, during Confederation, he didn't want to have transfer payments. So equalization is a transfer payment. He said you should only send taxes to Ottawa. Ottawa should not be able to return some of those taxes how it sees fit. But the provinces said, no, if you want us to forego interprovincial trade tariffs, trade barriers, then you're going to give us transfers. It's basically the provinces were worried that one province would be more efficient than the other, so then they had transfers. Putting aside the fact that we now have interprovincial trade barriers, which is, I don't know how they got away with that, this whole equalization thing, it's socialism on a national level. So what they're saying is, if one province is more poor than the other one, we have to do wealth redistribution, and the provinces are going along with it. When I say the provinces, I mean Alberta. So I oppose it completely, but I look at our neighbors to the south, and this might be controversial given that there's heightened tensions right now. But America is more of a states' rights issue. Like, the states are responsible for their own selves, and this happens at the individual level too. Like, you make your way through life, whereas Canada, it's like daddy government, the welfare state, will usher you along. You see that at the individual level with the welfare state. You see it at the provincial level with equalization.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, it's a provincial thing about the pipelines that they okay it to go through the province. But I mean, I would hope that they would. It would lower the prices. We could, get the bitumen and turn it into gasoline, and we could do all that here and be self-sufficient. I really love the idea of being self-sufficient, especially with our food supply. I would love to see cherry trees, apple trees on the side of the road that aren't sprayed. If someone's hungry, they could just grab an apple. They don't have to pay for it, because when I was a kid, there was a cherry tree outside of the sidewalk. It wasn't really on the property, but it was on like where the government's side of the property. And there was a cherry tree there. And I went up there and I ate a million cherries. But they were all warm and perfectly ripe and, fat and dark red. And it was just amazing. And it's one of my best memories of that, that year in my life as a child. And I want to see that back. I think we could do so much better if we just allowed people to have trees, grow trees, and help to feed people, that are hungry. Because I think the cost of food is a real problem, and that's one way we could help and bring the community back together again. Because I feel like we've been separated, and I think these are one of the things that can bring us back together again. But
I agree with that. I blame that on let's say, government takeover of the food supply. Even 35, 40 years ago, I remember a lot of people had trees in their backyard, like a plum tree or, like you said, a cherry tree. And then over time, that kind of went away. And now everybody has a grass lawn, which is great. But grass is kind of the opposite of a tree. It doesn't give anything back, and you have to constantly give it things to it, like a lawnmower.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put your website on here so people can find you. This is the website here where you've got the position on the housing, all the PPC regulations, immigration, education, pensions, inflation, taxation, and there's our friend Peyman. But you have your podcast here. Lots of guests. Yep. Really, really good job.
I only do great Canadians.
I only do like one a week. That's all I do, and I don't even really think so much about it. They just kind of happen. Like our interview right now just kind of happened. I don't know how you found me, or because I didn't think I was that you would even know who I am. So maybe you could tell me how you found out about me. Did someone by word of mouth or?
By a mutual friend who follows podcasters, and they told me that Max was on, Peter Terrace, Ian Kennedy. You've interviewed two guests that I've interviewed, Kirk Reese and Mr. Michael Jackson.
Yeah. I did. But I was thinking that maybe we could get Max on, you and Ian, and maybe even Peter Terrace, and have like a round table where we could talk about the PPC party and sometime before the election. Now, are you having a by-election by chance, or you're just running in? And you're running in Vancouver, any particular region?
I'm actually running in West Vancouver, which is a suburb outside of downtown. Thank the Lord, because downtown is very woke, especially the premier's riding. It's a very, very big NDP stronghold.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope that you're open to coming back again, because I would really enjoy that. And I wish you luck. I wish you prosperity in the election. I hope people will wake up and get you in there, because I think our voice is so important, and I think you are our voice. I think Maxime is our voice. Every single thing about the policy, and I'm like you, I would expand on a few things, but I do agree with all the policy. I agreed with most of the policies of the Libertarian Party as well. Not everything, but I did also believe in that too. Is there anything you want to say before we leave?
Yes. So first of all, thank you very much for having me on. I had a blast, and I love these conversations. Secondly, I hope you'll consider one day coming on my show and having another chat.
Sure. I don't know what I could add. I mean, I do have strong opinions on things, but I'm really not an expert on anything. But I would be honored to be on your show as well, and I would be
Let
honored
me
to have you back.
let me end it on this note. So every
Sure.
Canadian I talk to, they tell me I'm not an expert on anything, or I'm not an expert on blank. And then you talk to them because they've been through life, they've been on this planet 30, 40, 50 years, and
Hmm.
they end up being experts in life, which is what I want on the show anyway, because I don't want some jackass that went to university has no idea how the world works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the information I've gathered is all based on compassion and caring about other people suffering, and when it's not necessary. And I think God's in charge of all of this. I really do. I think there are good people and there are bad people, and I think the last 4 years, the good people have found each other. You know, and I'm glad you have a show, and I hope that the right person hears the right show. Where certain information might change their life, and I hope the right people saw this show and get to know you and vote for you in the next election. If I was in Vancouver, I would vote for you. And again, thank you for coming on. Thank you, everyone at home, for joining us. Next week, I've got another host of The Missing Link. Jesse Hall is going to be here next week. So it's like host month or so. All our hosts are hosting each other. But yeah, we'll get in touch, and I'll be happy to go on your show as well. So thank you for coming on again, and I wish you all the best in the elections, Peyman.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You too, and thank you all for coming. It's been an honor to do this show. January 12th, 2025. Next week, like I said, I have Jesse Hall coming on. That I think it's going to be at the same time, but I look forward to seeing you all then. And I thank again Peyman for coming on the show. Find him on his website and find out everything about him. All his podcasts are very informative, and he does a great job. And I appreciate thank him for being on the show. Thank you.